My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Rob.
And hello, I'm Neil.
Hi there, Neil. Now, have you ever had a close encounter with a monkey or an ape?
Well, I am sitting next to you, Rob.
Very funny. No, Neil is referring to the fact that all humans are descended from apes, and apes and monkeys belong to a group of animals called primates. The difference is that monkeys have tails and apes don't.
Well, I didn't know that. On a serious note, I had a close shave with some monkeys once in Bali.
A close shave is where you only just manage to avoid a dangerous situation. So, Neil, what happened?
I was walking up a mountain on my own, and suddenly a bunch of monkeys jumped out of nowhere, blocking my path.
Oh, goodness. OK, so what did you do?
After standing there for ages while the monkeys screeched at me, I turned round and walked back the way I came.
OK, if you screech at someone, it means to make a loud, high and unpleasant sound. So the monkeys won that face-off then?
Absolutely, yes, they did. And a face-off, by the way, means an argument or fight.
Well, today's show is about gibbons and the different sounds they make. Gibbons are small apes that live in Southeast Asia. And while Neil's monkeys screech unpleasantly, gibbons sound like they're singing.
Musical apes, that's nice. So how about today's quiz question, Rob?
OK, good idea. How far can a gibbon's voice travel through the forest? Is it A, 500 metres, B, 1 kilometre, or C, 5 kilometres?
Well, I have to guess, and I'm going to say B, 1 kilometre.
You've never heard one?
Never heard one.
OK, well, we'll find out later in the programme whether you're right or wrong. Now let's listen to what a gibbon really sounds like.
Let's just hear this. That's an absolutely wonderful, evocative sound, isn't it? Beautiful sound. And what are they doing there then? That is, I said talking to each other.
Well, they're singing together. So a male and a female, when they hold a territory together, will sing every morning, what they call a duet. All the groups are surrounded.
What we call a duet.
Yes,
It's quite.
Absolutely, and they'll all sing together at the same time, and the whole forest will be alive with this cacophony of song.
So the gibbons make an evocative sound. If something is evocative, it brings strong feelings or memories to mind.
And something that is evocative is usually pleasant, Rob.
It is. And what's also interesting is that the apes are singing in pairs, one male and one female. They are singing duets together. So a duet is a song sung by two people, or in this case, sung by two gibbons.
And a lot of gibbons are singing duets at the same time, which Dr. Clark describes as a cacophony. Cacophony means a mix of loud noises which often sound out of tune.
And that could easily describe us singing together.
Let's not do that.
But what's the reason for the gibbon duets, Neil?
Well, the songs advertise the relationship between the male and the female, and they also help to make clear which territory or bit of land belongs to a pair or group of gibbons.
Gibbons also use different sounds to alert or warn other gibbons about danger from predators. These are animals that eat other animals. The gibbons use a quiet hoo-hoo call to communicate that a leopard is nearby, and an even quieter hoo-hoo call for an eagle.
You're very good at that,
Thank
Rob.
you.
Now let's hear more from Dr. Clark about this. How does he describe language?
Yes, so the idea is that if we find things like context-specific calling in non-human primates, it suggests that way back in time, the ancestor that we shared with them also had context-specific calling. So basically it just gives us some clues to the evolutionary roots of complex communication like language.
Dr. Clark says that if we go far enough back in time, humans and other primates, such as monkeys and apes, have the same ancestor.
Right, and ancestor means an animal or human from the past that a modern animal or human has descended from. So, if this common ancestor used context-specific calls, like modern gibbons, then it could have passed on this ability to humans a long time ago.
Context-specific calling means different calls for different situations. For example, one call for leopard and another for eagle.
And evolutionary means a gradual process of change or development.
Okay, well, let's have the answer to the quiz question. Earlier, I asked, how far can a gibbon's voice travel through the forest? Is it A, 500 metres, B, 1 kilometre, or C, 5 kilometres?
And I said B, 1 kilometre.
And you were right, a good guess.
Wow,
or
very
perhaps
good.
you do know a lot about gibbons, so well done. Now, can we hear today's words again, maybe in a gibbon's voice, Neil?
Not sure about that. I'll do it in a human voice.
Okay.
Primates. A close shave. Screech. Face off. Gibbons. Evocative. Duet. Cacophony. Territory. Alert. Predators. Ancestor. Evolutionary.
Thank you. Well, that's the end of today's 6-Minute English. You can hear more 6-Minute English programmes on our website at bbclearningenglish.com. Please join us again soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.
6-Minute English from the BBC.
This
My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best. Flick to link, link to flick.
Have these beautiful gardens, you know. It's strangely bucolic. On one hand, you're passing abandoned, collapsing houses and villages along the way, but then you show up at Hannah Zavorotnya's house and you're like, and you see this sort of sprightly woman welcome you and start offering you moonshine and dumplings, and you're like, wow, I'm in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, yet this experience is happening.
Our modern lives are filled with convenience and technology. Shrink-wrapped vegetables and crystal-clear swimming pools and plastic bags. But increasingly, those things are making our world and our bodies more toxic. So today on the show, we're going to explore some of the toxins in our environments, in our foods, even toxins our own bodies produce, and what we might be able to do about it.
The women of the zone have chosen to live in a contaminated environment. They had a choice, and that kind of choice is going to be seen all over the world in the decades to come, because environmental disasters are going to continue to happen, and it's not going to be realistic or maybe even the choice of people who live in those areas to leave. So the babushkas of Chernobyl, you know, are an early and curious example of this.
More on the babushkas later and how they've survived, even thrived for so long. But first, the worst nuclear accident in history is one thing, but what about the toxins we all encounter every single day?
I mean, we're exposed to chemicals all the time.
They're all around us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By the way, this is Dr. Tyrone Hayes.
Oh, Tyrone's fine.
Okay, great.
As you know, I say, nobody has to call me doctor unless you're a cop pulling me over for no reason.
Tyrone is a biologist at the University of California at Berkeley.
And my research focuses on endocrine-disrupting chemicals in the environment.
Endocrine-disrupting chemicals describes a whole group of chemicals that mimic the body's natural hormones, like estrogen or testosterone. And it turns out those chemicals are in all kinds of stuff we use every day, in food packaging, cleaning products, baby products, toys, even in water.
I mean, one of the most troubling things is most of the chemicals we use we know very, very little about.
But we knew even less about them 20 years ago. That was when Tyrone began studying one particular chemical called atrazine. And real quick, what is atrazine used for?
It's an herbicide, for example. It's mostly used on corn in this country. So you would spray atrazine all over the soil so that nothing grows up. And when you plant the corn, then there's no weeds to compete with the corn. It's also used in forestry. It's also used on golf courses. And in some states, it can be used on your lawn.
So how are humans exposed to atrazine?
Atrazine exposure for humans is mostly through the drinking water.
Tyrone did some of the earliest studies on atrazine and whether it was the kind of chemical that could throw natural hormones out of whack. And the way he did this was by studying frogs.
Amphibians are of particular interest because they have to deal with the aquatic environment, they have to deal with the terrestrial environment, they go through these amazing transitions where they're completely vulnerable to the environment. They can't regulate their temperature. When they're developing as embryos, they have no placenta, no eggshells to protect them from the environment.
So Tyrone took a bunch of frogs and exposed them to atrazine. And eventually, he came up with some pretty surprising results, which he described on the TED stage.
We were a bit surprised when we found out that when we exposed frogs to very low levels of atrazine, 0.1 parts per billion, that it produced animals that look like this. These are the dissected gonads of an animal that has 2 testes, 2 ovaries, another large testis, more ovaries, which is not normal, even for amphibians. In some cases, in other species like the North American leopard frog, we showed that males exposed to atrazine grew eggs in their testes, and you can see these large yolked up eggs bursting through the surface of this male's testes. We showed that some of these animals, when they're exposed to atrazine, some of the males grow up and completely become females. So these are actually 2 brothers consummating a relationship. And not only do these genetic males mate with other males, they actually have the capacity to lay eggs, even though they're genetic males. What we propose and what we've now generated support for is that what atrazine is doing is wreaking havoc, causing a hormone imbalance. Normally the testis should make testosterone, the male hormone, but what atrazine does is it turns on an enzyme, the machinery, if you will, aromatase, that converts testosterone into estrogen. And as a result, these exposed males lose their testosterone, they're chemically castrated, and they're subsequently feminized because now they're making the female hormone.
That's unbelievable. And were you just bathing these frogs in atrazine and just exposing them to crazy levels of it?
Oh, no, it's not crazy levels. We were exposing the levels that you can find in rainwater, so it's a ubiquitous contaminant. It's the most common contaminant of drinking water and most common contaminant of groundwater.
So I'm assuming after this study that you did came out, it was banned in the U.S.
No, it wasn't banned in the U.S.
This is not banned in the U.S.
No, the U.S. EPA was only now has the EPA come out with a report saying that atrazine is a threat to wildlife, and they have another report coming out where they review its effects on humans. And in California, under Prop 65, atrazine has just been labeled a reproductive toxin. So the European Union denied regulatory approval for atrazine all the way back in 2002.
So yeah, as a result of Tyrone's research, the EU banned atrazine. In the US, a lot of scientists are still split on whether atrazine is safe, whether it's as dangerous as Tyrone claims. And full disclosure, some of his studies have been hard to replicate. But if he's right, what could it mean for humans? Tyrone Hayes returns in just a minute. Today on the show, Toxic. I'm Guy Raz, and you're listening to the TED Radio Hour from NPR. It's the TED Radio Hour from NPR. I'm Guy Raz. And on the show today, Toxic. And we were just hearing from UC Berkeley biologist Tyrone Hayes about his research on the herbicide atrazine. And he found that male frogs, when exposed to atrazine, they grew ovaries and started to produce eggs.
Which was very strange and abnormal.
Now, the obvious question is, what does this mean for humans, right? Well, frogs are different than humans in many ways. First of all, they're especially vulnerable before they're born because they hatch from eggs, and soft ones, without any real shell. And humans, like most mammals in utero, are nourished and protected by the placenta, which helps remove waste and toxins from the fetus.
But it turns out that this ancient structure that separates us from other animals, the placenta, cannot evolve or adapt fast enough because of the rate that we're generating new chemicals that it's never seen before.
Here's Tyrone again on the TED stage.
The evidence of that is that studies in rats, again with atrazine, show that the hormone imbalance that atrazine generates causes abortion, because maintaining a pregnancy is dependent on hormones. Of those that don't abort, atrazine causes impaired mammary or breast development in the exposed daughters in utero, so that the breasts don't develop properly. And as a result, when those rats grow up, their pups experience retarded growth and development because they can't make enough milk to nourish their pups. And given the life of many of these chemicals, years, dozens of years, that means that we right now are affecting the health of our grandchildren's grandchildren by things that we're putting into the environment today. And this is not just philosophical. It's already known that chemicals like diacetylstilbestrol and estrogen, PCBs, DDT, cross the placenta and effectively determine the likelihood of developing breast cancer and obesity.
Flick to link.